So I'm responding basically to this person. They're freaking out because I'm specifically saying that Charleston White was a rapist and a pedophile because he said that children should be sodomized and raped. And I just basically was doing a video responding to that, right? And for whatever reason, this person was freaking the heck out because I was saying that he was a pedophile, which, well, that's true. If you are thinking about a child being sodomized, and you clearly are a pedophile. If you don't want people to know that, then you shouldn't tell people that. I mean, it's kind of easy, you know. But some people have such evil demons in them. They need to tell people about those things because it's the wicked that's within them that they feel they want others to share in, basically. It's really sick. But anyway, so anyway, this person is either Charleston White or someone very connected or felt triggered by what I was saying in that regard, because that's what the video was about. And specifically, they were freaking out because they were trying to say that I didn't know about the history of Black people. They thought I wasn't a Black person at first. It was weird. They're like, "You're not white." I was like, where did I ever say that I was a white person? Like, what are you talking about? And then they were trying to be like, there's nothing factual about what you're saying. It was like, the things that I said were specifically having to do with the guy saying that he wanted children to be sodomized. Obviously, that is extremely disturbing, and a lot of people have reacted the same way. I don't know why you're freaking out on me, and everybody else has the same view that that person's obviously a rapist. They're self-proclaimed rapists, and secondarily, they are also a pedophile by their own fantasies that they've admitted on, like saying that children should be sodomized. Now, besides that, then he started trying to go off and try and act like, oh, you must be someone who does drugs or all this stuff, cocaine and all this stuff. It was interesting because it's like, okay, so you're saying because you're mad at me, I must do cocaine. And then he started telling me basically how you do cocaine. And I was like, oh my God. Don't tell me that stuff, one, because that's concerning. I don't like to hear about how you get high, because I don't want to know about it. But my reaction to that was specifically, as always, I'm a Muslim, and for me, I've just never done any drugs or alcohol or cigarettes. That's just me. I mean, I lost my virginity at 26, so I mean, for me, it's just I'm not all into that type of stuff, and that's a major reason why. For a long time, I've always been kind of singular, and I've always been kind of, I guess, out of the party life, I am definitely a reject. Yeah. I live in Vegas. The main things that people do out here is drugs, and a main thing that people do, they like to smoke marijuana and all that stuff, and yes, marijuana is a drug. I've always been an outsider because of that, because when they congregate, they do marijuana and so forth. Now, I'm allergic to marijuana, to that matter. When people specifically, like, smoke it and so forth, I always have a bad reaction. It's just what it is. So, for me, you know, I've never even drank alcohol. That's a major thing. Like, I've never even drank alcohol, let alone other drugs that you're talking about, you know. For me, it's just like I'm more of the innocent type, and that's just what it is. Now, the thing is about you guys, ghetto Black people, is most of the time, you guys never understand what innocence is. You never know what it is when you witness it and so forth. You know, you just don't recognize it. And then it's not just that. I think you guys telling yourself so much. Like, this is a guy who specifically is on his channel, specifically speaking very fast. If you know that, like, crack, cocaine, meth, all those drugs are supposedly like ecstasy, right? So those people do things in a fast fashion. You know, they do not talk very slowly. For me, I talk very slowly. That's just how it is. if I were to talk any slower than this, then that would be really messed up. But, yeah, I don't know. It's like, don't tell on yourself. And a lot of the time, drug addicts do that. You know, a lot of the time, drug addicts will talk about how they are doing cocaine or crack or whatever. And it's just weird to me. Because it's like, nobody brought up drugs but you. And I guess that's the norm for you. You start talking about how you do it and all this stuff. And you can go to this channel and he does seem like he's inebriated. So it's interesting to me. So anyway, on that level, it's just kind of like, you know, I didn't know why he kept going on about that. But more than anything, it was just like, okay, why are you mad? And at first I didn't even know, like I said, in the notifications, I didn't know what video he was reacting to. And then I saw what he was reacting to, and I was like, okay, so you're mad at me because I just said that the guy was a pedophile simply because he said he wanted children to be sodomized, which implies he is a pedophile because he thinks of children in a very wicked, sexualized manner. So he's clearly a pedophile. Like, this is obvious. So it's like, instead of fighting me on the issue, you want to use accusations that can't even work for me. You know, it would have been smarter to just say I was slow, crazy, all those things, okay? Now, those things, at least you could have some point where you could say, oh, you're speaking slowly, therefore you're slow. You know, you could say, you have a voice that's in between male and female. You sound crazy or whatever, right? You could do those things. But specifically trying to go with drugs just didn't work out too well. You should have gone with maybe a downer drug or something, because that would have made more sense. You know, I don't know. But yeah, it was just like, you can't debate the issue because you know he is a pedophile. You know he is a rapist, you know? And that's just the truth. Also, one other thing I wanted to talk about, and this was specifically talking about how he was trying to talk about race, and he, like I said, he thought I was not black, and I don't know why. I think maybe it was my voice, because I was like, is it because I speak English like a normal person instead of a person who, like, some black people act like they are foreign and they have to have a weird accent, and it's like, you're a black American. You're an American. So, I mean, like, you should sound like an American, not someone who we can hardly understand. But anyway, the thing was with that was that I was just like, that was my question, basically. But specifically, he went off on a long thing thinking that I was foreign or something, or that because I was Muslim, I could not be from America. This is not true. Like, for me, specifically, I'm the type who specifically is a black Muslim. And if you were actually a black American Muslim and not an African, then you would actually know this too. Because black Americans have black Muslim jokes. They have the bean pie joke, bean pie Muslim jokes. All that nonsense, right? And Farrakhan and bullcrap, okay? I've heard so many people try and do stuff like with my mother and stuff, and they try and have these fights and stuff. She would try and, yeah. Anyway, my family actually did become Muslims. My grandparents became Muslims because of the Nation of Islam. Yes, my family was originally black supremacists. But yeah, I mean, like, I don't know why you thought that black Americans can't be Muslim. The majority of American Muslims are black Americans. So, yeah, that's weird. For me, personally, since we're on the topic, I'm going to talk about my religion and political stances. For me, I'm not a very religious Muslim, not specifically, no. But when it comes to compared to Christians, yes, I am. This is what kind of irks me a little bit with the whole idea with Muslims is this. You guys always think, oh, you got to be a perfect Muslim, but what kind of Christian are you? That's what I never understand. It's like, why are you putting me at these standards? But you, as a Christian, you could be, murdering somebody on cocaine, crack, and heroin. And just thinking like you do, like that you celebrate pedophilia. You think that somebody who specifically says that you should sodomize children should be considered a good guy, basically, because you do not see that as a wrong thing. Maybe because you have those tendencies yourself. So it's like, I don't understand why are you telling me about, oh, you're not doing this right as a Muslim? I'm tired of that. I find that so annoying that people always do that. And I used to get this a lot when I was younger, especially because they'll be like, oh, you're supposed to cover up and all this stuff. And it's like, I don't do all that, no. And I'll tell you, I don't pray. I don't fast. Yeah, I don't do a lot of things that a lot of Muslims do. I don't read the Quran as much as I should. And honestly, I don't believe in anything to do with culturally associating with Arabs. I do not like that at all. In fact, I reject it because I do think everyone's culture who is an American is inferior. And I think that includes people like you who are African. And that includes people who are Black American who decide to try to claim another type of culture than the mainstream culture they were raised with. See, Black Americans claim they have a culture, but they don't really have culture. They just don't like the fact that white Americans enslaved Black Americans long, long time ago. And then they want to claim a culture that's not really theirs, basically. It's not derived from their ancestors. It's derived from a stereotype that they invoke on basically being a Black culture, when it's not. Anybody has that specific subculture that people claim is Black culture. It's not specifically belonging to Black Americans. White Americans and Black Americans express that subculture, basically. But it's just like, personally to me, I was raised with a very mainstream Midwestern American culture, and that's just how I was raised, basically. I have a lot of national pride, and for me personally, I specifically have a view of specifically Black Americans belonging to that as well. But sometimes Black Americans block their own blessings, their own pride in themselves, because honestly, racist people try to strip Black Americans from their own American identity, saying that Black Americans didn't deserve to be American because we're Black. So, to me, it's just like, I don't get hoodwinked by the idea that Black Americans aren't real Americans, so to speak. Now, on the other issue, I wanted to also talk about, my beliefs on politics. So I believe on politics when it comes to immigration. I'm very strong on immigration. I do think that all illegal immigrants should be sent back home. I believe that we should have immigration based off of merit, not actually just anyone who wants to come here. And I don't believe in citizenship as a birthright. I think it's specifically that if you are born here to parents that are legally able to be in this country, then you should have citizenship. I don't think if you come from two illegal immigrants that you should specifically be a person who is considered an American citizen. I don't consider that an American citizen. You are what your parents are at that point. You're an illegal immigrant as well. On the other issue, you were talking about drugs, like I said, because you brought up the topic of drugs. I am very, very, very conservative on the war on drugs, okay? I do believe we should still have the war on drugs. I think that we should. With the whole situation of fentanyl and people having run into situations where people who were not trying to get high, trying to do drugs or anything, but they just stumbled upon like $1 or went into someone's area that had some drug substances around and ended up, going into a coma or dying because of the secondhand interaction. I do believe that we should make it a capital offense, honestly. I do. I think that drug dealers should have some sense of a death penalty, honestly. Maybe like the worst of drug dealing crimes should be penalized with the death penalty. I do believe that. And I personally believe that also drug addicts should get the death penalty as well. Definitely. There's no fixing them, and considering the whole situation with fentanyl and how dangerous it is, they're a safety hazard, honestly, and they can literally kill everybody. So that's a major reason why I personally think that they should be put to death. And I don't really have any sympathy for drug addicts because once you're hooked, I don't think you can be fixed anyway. So we have no use for you at this point in society. So it's no loss if they're put to death, in my opinion. I wanted to also talk about specifically, you were trying to make that accusation for me. No, that is not true at all because one, you can't even see my eyes. So, I mean, like, when you're trying to accuse me of, and you're trying to accuse me of, having some kind of softness towards people who do drugs, I do not have that at all. And trying to claim that I do it, that would be crazy. If I was one who did it, wouldn't I have a soft place in my heart for those type of people? I don't personally, not one bit. People I have more softness towards is specifically the poor. And the reason why I have more sympathy towards people who are poor is because, I grew up in my childhood very poor. I'm personally very poor. In my 20s, I've been very poor. I'm finally getting the hang of certain things and able to be a little bit more financially stable, I guess you could say. But yeah, this is a major reason why, for me, I am very anti-drugs. Why? Because I feel like drug addicts make it so much harder for poor people. For example, it's harder to get a job when they're drug dealers taking the jobs and they're not put in prison where they belong. It's hard to have a job and work with people who are affected by having drugs in their system. It's hard to interact with them. It's hard to be a team work individual with them. It's problematic, Every opportunity in my life, I feel like, many of the time as a poor person, I compete with a lot of drug addicts. It would be less competition if I specifically didn't have to worry about drug addicts. I feel like every job should have it mandatory that you specifically have to, specifically be tested for any, drug use of any sort, basically. So if you specifically are, on any drug, including marijuana, I think you should automatically be tested if you are applying for the job. If you are just on the job, there should be random tests done. I think that when people get apartments, they should be legally mandatory to test people for drugs. If this were to happen, and in every facility that we partake in, social services and so forth, that people were drug tested, we would have everybody who did drugs in prison and sent down to, have the death penalty invoked on them. So they would be dead, basically. Hopefully dead in 2 or 3 years or something, right? So specifically, that would be very beneficial to people like me, because then there would be a lot of job openings available. There would be lots of types of jobs that would be available to me. I wouldn't just have low tier level jobs as my options. So instead, I would be able to probably move up faster. If, for example, you're at a job and most people are sent to jail or having, been sentenced or whatever would happen to them in those cases. Think of it. What position would I move up to in any job where everybody's pretty much wiped out? You get what I mean? So this is why, for me, I am very, very much anti-drugs, because it benefits me to be that way. I think every poor person who isn't on drugs should be pro death penalty, pro life sentences for people who do drugs, because they do not benefit us. They are our competition, honestly. And so for those reasons, I do not have any sympathy in my heart. I see them as my enemy, But like I said, I do have a soft place in my heart for poor people. I do. Because poor people, to me, honestly, we take care of everybody more than we take care of poor people. Like, we take care of drug addicts more than poor people. We take care of criminals more than poor people. We take care of people who are specifically like illegal immigrants. We take care of them more than poor people. Like, if we cut down on taking care of all these people, we could literally provide for poor people. And nobody would ever have to face evictions, not starvation, but like food shortage. You get what I'm saying. Not having enough food in their homes, not having electricity or heat or whatever it may be. We would be completely sufficient. Poor people would have it covered, because they could go to social services and they would automatically have their back, And, with poor people, many of us are not trying to just live off the system like people always try and depict. Many of the time, poor people are just trying to get some help, So, yeah, I am very much for the betterment of poor families and poor people, getting the help that they need, and I think that social services should be for poor people, not drug addicts, not people who are criminals or illegal immigrants. I think actual, genuine, law-abiding, poor citizens of America should be the first, concern, because we are a part of American society. So that's my view on that. Also, what was the other thing you were saying? Oh, yeah, specifically for me, yeah, I don't personally have that issue. You can't even see my eyes like that. That's kind of like weird you were even trying to say that, because it's like I have very dark eyes, so that was really weird. But I will say that I have a situation where I do not specifically have a lot of emotion and when I do my videos, and honestly, I do not have much emotion when I interact with people. Now, this is a barrier for me, and I think a lot of people who are predatory, and I think I already addressed why you're a predatory individual. But for me, I specifically like to guard my eyes, basically, where I don't like to have a lot of emotion, because when people have emotion, they usually seem like they're weak. They seem like you can change their emotion. That's why people look for emotion, is so then they can basically change their emotion or control them, or to see how someone is actually feeling. And I'm not that type to do that, because I think, honestly, people who search for that are usually searching for a form of weakness or something to take someone down by. But yeah, that's why I always am very emotionalist. But like trying to say you can see my eyes, that would be flattering because that would mean that you can see my eye color. Now I've said before I do have eyes that aren't the darkest brown, but they are definitely not that noticeable unless you go up close, like really up close, or in sunlight. But I haven't done any videos in sunlight, so I know you're not talking about seeing my irises. So you can't really see my eyes or my pupils. It's just what it is, you know. So instead of making up stuff or trying to lie and stuff and so forth, it's just kind of like weird because it's like, you know, I've already covered most everything. I do find it kind of weird that you specifically thought I wasn't a black person, which is why I kind of feel like you're African, you know, and you're not really even American. So it's kind of like interesting because it's like, why are you talking about like, oh, I hate people of other countries and all this stuff when it's like, you're not even from here, dude. That's all I have to say on that, you know. I mean, if you were really black American, you would have ancestry that was more white than mine. Most black Americans do. I don't even have that much European ancestry. I have like 7, 8, 9%. And then I have like 11% North African ancestry. And then I have the rest that's black. And that's when I stretch it out. I mean, that's basically coming up with every DNA result and kind of stretching out the result that they gave me. So the largest result I had with European is close to 9%. The largest result I've had with North Africa is 11.7%. No, 10.7%. And then the largest percentage of Native American is 1%. And then the largest percentage of Asian, if we include Ouijin in this, it's really high, but I just don't do that. So I just say it's like 0.3% or something like that. So anyway, that's all I really have to say in this video, you know. I kind of find you really odd. You tried to say my skin was fair or close to fair, which was just so odd. My skin is, some people call my skin dark. I would say my skin is like a very dark tan. Definitely not fair. Like I said, you are probably on drugs and can't see, or you're African and don't know really your color simply because you're a very dark person. So, yeah, I don't really have much else to say in this video. Thanks for watching, everyone. Like and subscribe, comment down below, and have a great day. Bye, guys.